This has been a labor of love that's taken us quite a long time to build, but is having a big impact on our organization.
At Ryz Labs, we do thousands of interviews a year. Since we've launched Ntrvsta, we've done thousands of interviews. It's been an incredible use case, and I think we'll dive into it a little bit more.
Built this week, breaking it down. Built this week, we show you how. A fresh idea, a clever tweak. You locked in, you built this week.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Built This Week, the podcast where we share what we're building, how we're building it, and what it means for the world of AI and startups. I'm Sam Nadler, co-founder of Ryz Labs, and I'm joined by my friend, business partner, and co-host Jordan Metzner. What's up, Jordan?
Hey, Sam. How's it going? Happy to be back.
Going great. I'm especially excited about today's episode. Like always, we're covering a tool we have built. However, this tool is not some small internal tool we built over a small period of time. This has been a labor of love that's taken us quite a long time to build, but is having a big impact on our organization. We're going to dive deep into that tool. I'm going to let you present it, and then we're going to do some quick, really hot news topics. As always, you know, AI is crazy. There were lots of earnings these past couple days, so the market's on fire. So there's lots to talk about today.
Yeah, so much to talk about. Again, another hot summer week with incredible earnings across the board, with AI just driving it all, and just complete market frenzy. So yeah, lots to talk about, and super excited to jump into our product of the week as well.
Yeah, and before we jump into our product, everyone who's listening, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Built This Week. New episodes every Friday where we're covering what we're building and what we think about what's going on in AI. So let me cue you up really quick.
Great.
We have a pretty big product launch that is literally launching today as this episode comes out. The product name is Ntrvsta, which most people probably don't know what that means. But why don't you kind of give us the background, how it was built? You know, we'll have a series of questions. Hopefully that is interesting to the audience, but let's kick it off and dive in.
Yeah, so Ntrvsta is a super interesting product that we started as an internal project here at Ryz Labs, and we've now gone on to launch it as an external product for other external customers to use. And like many of the products we build, it started with our own internal problems and trying to find some solutions for them. And I think by the time this episode's out, Ntrvsta will be on Product Hunt as well as a few other places online. So if you find Ntrvsta on Product Hunt, please give us an upvote. But just to give a quick background on Ntrvsta and the problem case and why we built it, you know, at Ryz Labs, we do thousands of interviews a year. I looked at the numbers and realized that obviously every interview is incredibly expensive for us. And obviously, if we interview someone and we hire them, then, you know, that's a successful interview. And if we interview someone and we don't hire them, then, you know, maybe we've wasted some time there. And, you know, in general, interviews take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And you constantly spend time in interviews where, you know, like, you know, possibly that the candidate may not be great. And yet, you know, you have that time dedicated out of respect for the candidate and whatnot. You know, as AI has been growing across our business in general, I think it was obvious to us that AI and interviewing were going to be a critical piece. And, you know, once we built the Ryz Score app, which I think we talked about on a previous episode, you know, scoring resumes automatically, you know, kind of that was a huge time killer for our recruiting team. I mean, it saved them a ton of time because, you know, we're able to run through the scores and use that as leverage to move much faster. But we realized, you know, obviously the big time suck is interviewing. And so it started off with just like a really simple idea of, you know, how can we use AI and AI avatars to help us interview? And since we've launched Ntrvsta, we've done thousands of interviews. It's been incredible use case, and I think we'll dive into it a little bit more. But, you know, it has some really great things that humans don't have, which is, you know, unlimited availability, unlimited scalability, high reduction in bias. You know, all the scoring is pretty evenly fair. Large amount of expertise. So, you know, the AI interviewer can interview across a multitude of subjects. And, you know, in this case, it's a female, Carolina. She's an incredible expert in pretty much every subject she interviews in. The interviews are dynamic, which means that, there is not a fixed set of questions, but more of a conversation, a dialogue, like a realistic interview. It can be had in many languages. It's easily shareable and repeatable. And I think it just shows that, AI is going to have an impact across so many different industries, but it's certainly had a big impact on our business so far. And we think Ntrvsta is an incredible tool for other large organizations that are hiring.
I think, and we'll get into this, but I think it's easy to make the argument for large hiring organizations why Ntrvsta could be such a great tool. But for even the candidates themselves, why, and you touched upon this a little bit in your introduction, but why is potentially this even better than the previous, historical human solution?
Yeah, we've got a lot of feedback from candidates that they really enjoyed the experience, mostly because they realize that they know it's an avatar. And so, while it's a little, I would say maybe unique or different or even awkward, at first, they kind of adapt to it pretty quickly and realize that, she is very patient. She's calm and she's there to help you. I think the transparency of the scoring algorithms really help candidates. So, after a candidate finishes their interview, they receive an email with their score, and that just drives towards kind of more buy-in and ownership of the candidates themselves. And at the end of the day, what you're really looking for is try to find the best people for your organization. And the way to do that is really to scale up, the top of your funnel. And that means, more candidates through the door. And that, as you open up the top of the funnel, that means you need to interview more candidates. And so, AI is kind of the only way that you can truly kind of scale your organization at the top of the funnel through interview process.
Okay. And for, obviously, like I mentioned, this is a bit easier to define, but for large hiring organizations, why could this be so nice? For me, being part of an owner and a founder who runs a staffing organization, speed is critical. And the number of candidates we're moving through our funnel is also critical in order to find the best candidates. And since we've adopted Ntrvsta, the ability to move candidates through the top part of our funnel, which is where we use Ntrvsta, is so much faster. I mean, immediately from the Ryz score directly to being able to take an interview literally within minutes, as opposed to waiting 3 days and scheduling it, the availability of the recruiter versus the availability of the candidate, can take days, if not weeks, versus immediate access to being able to interview. Secondly, you have just an immediate, feedback on if a candidate meets the needs of the opportunity. You get scoring immediately based on several different criteria, and you can potentially prioritize those candidates in even faster than your typical kind of normal process. Anything else from the organizational point of view that just makes this such a unique tool?
Well, one thing maybe your feedback is important here, but Ntrvsta obviously is an alternative to having recruiters do interviews. How do you think the recruiters have been able to take advantage of it, and has it replaced recruiters, or has it kind of, given them superpowers? What have you seen from your side?
So there's still a human element to our process. We still do human-based interviews within our funnel. So it hasn't completely replaced the recruiters. It's just significantly accelerated the top of the funnel for us. Recruiters will be able to, I think they'll still exist. There's still elements where they'll need to manage like open role requests and get people engaged in opportunities. I wish every opportunity was, pure inbound, but a lot of it's outbound. But hopefully we can, scale up our capacity significantly without necessarily having to scale our recruiting team. So I don't think, at least for us right now, there's no focus on reducing the number of recruiters we have. It's more on expanding their productivity greatly.
Yeah, I think actually
in fact, we're hiring more recruiters.
Yeah, I was going to say that since we've implemented Ntrvsta, we've actually increased our size of our recruiting team simply because they can be more efficient. We can take on more roles and more opportunities at the same time. Okay, let's jump into the product a little bit here.
Yeah, I would love to see a quick demo of what the actual tool looks like.
We can jump into a specific candidate here, and we'll have to block some of these details because they have some personal information. But, Ntrvsta works across all different types of interview types. In this case, this is actually a dermatologist who's interviewing for an RLHF role in regards to dermatology. And the reason I found this role so interesting and I selected this interview because the candidate just absolutely fantastic. She gets an 89.5 as an overall score, but a 90 in a technical score and 85 in soft skills. And so when a candidate takes an Ntrvsta actual interview, the first thing we do is we ask them their background, where they're from, what their interests are, what their hobbies are. In this case, Sarah likes to play tennis. We take a headshot of the candidate, and then we also talk about highlights and lowlights of the interview. So, we see some of the areas here where the interviewers did great, and then maybe some other areas where they can improve. And then as I just jump into it, what I think is really exciting is that you can watch back the entire interview here simply by either watching it in a full playback mode, but you can actually just jump to any chapter in the interview and see the candidate's feedback. I chose this chapter, but
in terms of the possible diagnosis. So it wasn't always very straightforward what the diagnosis would be. As we talked about before, it can be difficult to tell between an acne papule and a squamous cell carcinoma unless you have the appropriate history or you're looking at surrounding photo damage on the patient.
How do you handle cases where a lesion doesn't fit neatly into standard categories?
This can be difficult. When this occurs, I use my knowledge to make the best annotations possible based on the information that is given. Typically, you are able to tell color. You can tell the primary lesion. And if other options are indeterminate, then indeterminate is selected so that the AI is not being trained to make guesses that are not accurate.
great. So I just wanted to show out some features here besides chapters. Obviously, we've got subtitles supporting multiple languages. We've got playback speed, so you can actually watch the interview at a faster speed, which is also pretty awesome. Here we have every question with an answer and some evaluation. So if you jump around, we have the availability for you to copy and review the entire transcript of the interview. And for some interviews, we also have whiteboard analysis. So the candidate will be asked to sketch something. In this case, a simple workflow diagram that standardizes the annotation process. And here you can see the image that the candidate drew during the interview, as well as some analysis there. So really some awesome features when you're going to review a specific candidate.
And as you can see from the video, yes, I don't think it's hiding the fact that it's an avatar, but pretty quickly it becomes pretty normal. The latency is very reasonable. It's maybe not as fast as a conversation with two humans, obviously, but it's not awkward. And I also noticed at the end, it's dynamic. She asks, the avatar takes your answers and asks a follow-up based on your previous answer.
Yeah, it's incredibly dynamic, and that's, I think, what makes it feel so natural for the candidates, as you saw here with Sarah. And, here's a selection of dermatologists, and you can see their different scores and how well they performed. And in this case, Sarah's the top performing, but I would say that, 89, 85, these are still really, really good scores that we see overall. I could also jump into some other features.
Theoretically, you could have, a dermatologist job opening, post this role, move people through, and, depending on how fast people take the interview, but within a day or 2 days, you could have 5 candidates, their scores, their full interview, and wasted no time. Before we jump into the other features, I see that we have these dermatology candidates and they were asked specific questions regarding dermatology. We have engineer candidates. We have legal candidates. How do you know that the avatar is going to ask dermatology related questions and legal related questions, versus something completely off base?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of prompt engineering to really get the interview experience to be really tight, to keep Carolina, our interviewer, on track and make sure that she's able to both be friendly and communicative while not being inappropriate and not falling offline. We've done a lot of work to try to break that, see if we can have her, say something inappropriate or something she shouldn't be saying. And we've actually found that we've had really great results so far. And, most candidates are trying to get a job. So, they also act professional. And we find that, the feedback loop is pretty accurate on both sides, both from the recruiters as well as from the candidates.
Cool. I wanted you actually to, if you don't mind, show me how an assessment is created via the exam engine.
Yeah, well, one thing I think before we jump into that, obviously Ntrvsta has a really nice interface here, but most of our team actually uses it with a direct integration into their applicant tracking system. So, at Ryz Labs, we use Lever as our applicant tracking system, but Ntrvsta actually integrates with a bunch of different ATS and CRM tools. So, whether you're using Greenhouse or Lever or Ashby or, Workday or even, Salesforce or something like that, you can directly integrate Ntrvsta into those tools so that, Ntrvsta becomes kind of a secondary view and you can continue to maintain your applicant flow and move candidates through the funnel. And that's what we found has worked best for us internally as well. So, you can simply upload a job description right here. Like I mentioned, you can also leverage job descriptions that are built inside your inside of your ATS or CRM. So we can pull those automatically as well. And then you can also do manual entry by, entering the name of an assessment and filling out some information like job description, topics to cover, any specific questions or any type of certain instructions. And then we also allow the ability to turn on the whiteboard mode. So, we can decide whether or not an interview deserves a whiteboard or not, and we can turn that mode on. And then once you do that, that'll create an assessment, and then you can immediately start sending that assessment out to different candidates, just like I showed you previously with the dermatologist.
Yeah. And not only will it create an assessment immediately, you can then, once it creates the assessment, if something doesn't feel right, you can go in and edit it to finalize it, or you can just ship it as is. So it's a great little feature there.
Yeah, that's right. You can here look at the assessment and you can make edits to the assessment. And, not to spend too much time on the product itself, but obviously, it's got user management, it's got, dashboards and analytics and a lot of other features that probably be too boring to talk about on a podcast, but, it is a fully feature-rich product and allows organizations to understand what's happening within the organization when these interviews are taking place.
And, while this wasn't vibe coded in a few days by one or two people, can you give me a little bit of insight into how this was built?
Yeah. So, one of the things about Ntrvsta is that as new technology comes out, we continue to make improvements. And we've seen a lot of our AI tool set improve significantly over the software development time that we've been building the app. So, we use, AI, including ChatGPT and other AI tools for scoring, for translation, for feedback. We use, text to speech tools, speech to text, avatar generation tools, video streaming, video editing. There's still a lot of technology built into the Ntrvsta app that allows it to have this smooth end-to-end, user-like meeting experience that gives candidates, as natural as we can with today's technology, interview-like experience that hopefully feels like they're, taking a real interview.
Great. Anything else to cover on Ntrvsta before we move on?
Yeah, I think, right now we're talking about AI interviews as if it's an oddity or it's like a new technology. But, it seems to me, especially within our use internally, that, it's only a matter of time before this becomes the norm, like pretty much within any organization. I think we're going to see a lot more AI interview technology implemented across pretty much every major company. And I think mostly because of the fact that it actually really levels the playing field. When I worked at Amazon, you had to get trained in how to give interviews. After you give an interview, you have to score that interview. There's, 4 or 5 people coming into a room having a debrief. And I think if, the more information you have about your own organization, you're going to get better at leveraging a tool like Ntrvsta inside of it. And I think that what you're going to find is that it's going to remove a lot of biases to get some of the best candidates to the top and not just, who feels one way or another. And so, basically the cream will rise and you'll be able to really get, more people through the door and better candidates to the door as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I love it. It's been a huge, game changer for us. Our team loves it. I think they were a little apprehensive at first and now they love it. Now, like our ability to take on more clients, more roles with, roughly the same previous capacity, has allowed us to now hire more people, which I think is like the immediate fear with AI is this going to take my job? Where for us, I mean, obviously it's been a very short amount of time, in the last, 30 days, we've increased our recruiting capacity, our recruiters by 25%. So it's been the opposite in a short period of time on kind of what that fear is typically. Cool. I think this is a really exciting product. It's been a really exciting journey that in many ways is just getting started.
Yeah, totally. So I think, again, as we see new AI technology being shipped out from the major players, I think hopefully waiting for like GPT-5 to come out soon and some other new LLMs, I think we'll continue to see improvements inside of, our tools and AI interviewing overall.
Okay, great. I do want to cover a little bit of the news today or this week. Microsoft entered into I believe they're calling it the 4 trillion club with Nvidia. What are your thoughts on Microsoft and where does it go from here?
Yeah, I think, Microsoft's such an interesting company because, traditionally have been considered so quote, like old school or kind of in the first wave of, technology enterprise companies. And I think it just shows kind of, their leadership team has done an amazing job adapting AI and, leveraging their data center business and their relationship with OpenAI to build just a massive business. And it doesn't look like it's going to slow down. I mean, there seems to be almost unlimited demand, from, the major cloud providers, AWS, Microsoft, Google, and Oracle. This demand doesn't seem to be slowing down. It seems like the demand for chips from Nvidia is continuing to gain significantly. And Microsoft's been able to capitalize on all this. And yeah, I mean, you see the shares jump significantly, as soon as the earnings were announced, and it looks like they're not going to slow down. So yeah, I think, some of the old guards, the old technology companies, the Microsofts and Oracles of the world, look at them are at the top of it, top of the list for, being innovative in AI. And, they're leveraging their ability to use their capital to be first market players, and it's paying off. And I think it's not going to slow down. I think we're going to continue to see Microsoft rip over the next few years as, they get a lot of investment in AI. Okay, let's move on from Microsoft. You want to go into Meta, Figma? What do you think?
Let's do Figma. It's IPOing today. We talked about it briefly, I think 2 weeks ago. It's a really interesting IPO. It is open now, it looks. I think it was initially going to list at $28 or $25, but already at $102. That's crazy on its first day. And it's a great product. What do you think?
I think it was supposed to open it looks like previous close open rate was 33. It opened at 85. It's trading at 102. I mean, these are just like incredible numbers for IPO and technology companies overall. I think this might beg another reason for why not do direct listing. I read that it was a lot of secondary, but still I think direct listing probably would have captured some of the upside here. But yeah, Figma is a great product. We use it internally. I think, since implementing AI, we probably use it less than we used to. But yeah, it's been an incredible story of, the Figma having the deal with Adobe at 20 billion and then losing the deal with Adobe. And now here they are on opening IPO day, trading at 41 billion. It looks like it's continuing to trade up and down. It was halted for a little bit. I don't even know if you know that, but it was halted this morning once it went out to post trading. So yeah, the market is feverish for these types of hungry growth technology companies. And I think, probably even at this price, even at a 40 billion cap, it's probably still going to be upside here for companies like Figma. And I think it'll probably be a pathway for other technology companies like the Stripes of the world to go public if we're seeing such hunger in the market,
Yeah, I was going to ask. 2025 has been a pretty good year for IPOs, if not a great year. Who do you think's coming next?
Yeah, I don't know who's coming next. I think, we're going to see the hottest technology companies go public. And if now is not a time for a company like Stripe, I don't know who is, but I don't know when is actually. But yeah, I think, and I hope more technology companies do go public. I think it's a good thing for the market and good thing for the tech industry overall.
All right, Jordan. So as always, a crazy week in AI news with Microsoft, Figma, Meta. So many more happening. Thanks for walking me through Ntrvsta. It's been a fantastic episode. Hope everyone likes and subscribes, and we'll see you next week. Any final thoughts, Jordan?
Yeah, great episode 6. Love talking about AI this week and Ntrvsta, Meta, Microsoft, Figma. So much going on. It seems like it's not going to slow down. Maybe GPT-5 coming up next week, which obviously will just turn everything upside down. If we see GPT-5 beat Claude, it's going to be another crazy, crazy week. And I don't see any way of this slowing down. So AI is going to continue to dominate the tech news and tech space. And I think we're up for another crazy week next week. So anyway, this was great to see you, Sam, and looking forward to next week's episode.
Built this week, breaking it down. Built this week, we show you how. A fresh idea, a clever tweak. You locked in, you built this week.